So hello, Wantoe.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very happy to welcome you on Pimpernel for my first episode on the series about Oxford. So I'm doing this series Oxford around the world, and you're my first guest. So I'm very
Oh, that's so
pleased.
cool.
Yeah, thank you a lot for coming. So Wantoe, I did a little bit of research about you, but I also know you because we're in the same class. I know that you won a lot of awards.
Oh my.
You won an award that is called the Princess Diana Award. You also were elected for your leadership assets and dialogue in the Obama Foundation. You also had the Vincent de Paul Award from the College of Mount St. Vincent
You did a
in
lot of research there.
I did. So you did your undergrad in New York,
Yeah, sure.
but you grew up in Liberia, right?
Yes, I was born in Liberia. Grew up in Liberia.
Okay. Can you please introduce yourself in whatever way you'd like? That is maybe not academic, but more like the way you want to.
I guess technically you said almost everything. So I was born in Liberia. My dad hailed from Nimba County, one of the counties in Liberia. My mom hailed from another county, Grand Cayman. I was born in a multi-religious family. My mom was a Muslim, and then my dad a Christian. And I grew up with my dad, and I'm a Christian. My dad also have some. My extended family are multiples as well, because my dad had like more than one wife. Very interesting. So I have grew up with a lot of extended family. At a very young age, I've been very involved into advocacy for women's rights. So in Liberia, we had a very inherent space where we grew up realizing that there was injustices, especially ones that violated the right of women and children, and these common traits of injustices inspired us to stand up for what is true, what is right, uh, fighting for women's rights, fighting for children's rights, advocating for sustainable changes, and also reporting cases of sexual and gender-based abuse that were perpetrated by predators. And so that was my life when I was growing up. And I became the Secretary General of the Liberia National Children Youth Advisory Board, and then went on to be the ombudsperson, and then I served as chairperson of the Liberia National Children Youth Advisory Board. And during the Ebola outbreak, there was a very predominant crisis. Before that, part of my upbringing also have been being a refugee in Ghana. So I was a refugee living in Buduburan camp, one of the camp that was set up for Liberians who, from the age of the civil conflict that we had in Liberia upward, there was that refugee camp that was set up for, repatriations of Liberians and resettlement. Unfortunately, I did not get resettlement, so at some point in time, I returned to Liberia to, continue life. So with the Liberia National Children Youth Advisory Board, we created different means of engagement through writing blogs, through advocating, through joining BAD, weekly calls with other advocates around West Africa that were connected to Play International. And then we, talk about just gender-based violence, just issues that affected women, how to promote children's rights and stuff. And during the Ebola outbreak, we decided to conduct a survey because we realized that children were being neglected from the conflict, children whose parents had died and they became semi-orphans and orphans. We needed to create an awareness on that situation because they were being neglected. And the best way to do that is to engage in a survey analysis. And with the Defense of Children International, Liberia, Play International, we engage in survey in different communities, and we utilize the outcome of the survey to advocate at national and international conferences around the world on ensuring that we have instant support and immediate intervention to protect the vulnerability of children from the crisis. And in 2017, I was awarded at the UN, started school, and that has been my journey so far. There's a lot about it. Part of it also have been working, learning with the Obama Foundation on the Leadership and Asset Dialogue. Part of it was being a student leader during my undergraduate year in New York. I served as president for the class of 2022 in 2019 when I was a sophomore student, and then I served as vice president for club relations, and then went on to working on issues of racial inequality climate change and so forth. So it's a very interesting part. Another aspect also is serving as a steering member of the Department of Global Communication. Currently, I'm a student at Oxford like you. And yeah, and this is just, my journey.
That's fascinating. I have so many questions about all of the things that you did. I also know that you founded the Global Youth
Yes, yes,
Foundation,
yes.
which I want to discuss with you also. But before we delve into all of those accomplishments, I was more curious about you and your experience with schooling as a child. How was your experience growing up in school? You also mentioned that you were a refugee in Ghana. So how this impacted your schooling?
Sure. I mean, it did. It did. It had a lot of impact on my schooling. I came out a very bright kid, very interested in it. When I was in Ghana, I wrote BEC in Ghana, the basic examination program, and I attended NAMFRE, which is called GSS3, and then I attended SHS1 in Ghana before I returned to Liberia. So there was a point in time where living in a refugee camp, I did not go to school for almost 2 years.
So
And
how old were you?
that was a very, a dark spot in my life.
Okay.
It was a very critical dark spot because one of the reasons why we could not, because there was a lot of vulnerability. There was no access to resources. Living in a refugee camp, you are vulnerable to, a lot of bad stuff that does not inspire you. And one of the best decisions I ever made was returning to Liberia. That inspired me to, become where I am, understanding my situation and striving for change. And interestingly, today I am a Somerville Sanctuary Scholar, from living in a refugee camp to now pursuing another master at Oxford.
Yeah, that's very impressive. I wonder, how did you started studying, like having the idea of studying at Mount St. Vincent's in New York? How this opportunity came up in your life?
In 2017, I received a nomination from a selection from the French Ambassador Foundation, the then organizer of the Youth Assembly, that was selected out of 800 plus applicants to receive the Humanitarian Impact Award and to speak at the 2017 Summer Youth Assembly in New York. And that was, I traveled to New York in 2017 in August. I was awarded, and then I spoke to more than 800 plus young people from all around the world who attended the Youth Assembly that year. And I decided that, I think I need to pursue an undergraduate school here in New York. One, to be closer to the UN, and the second aspect is to consistently, continue to lead, continue to grow professionally, academically. And I applied to Pace University. One of these two schools that I applied to were Pace and the Mount St. Vincent. And Mount St. Vincent offered me everything, which sufficiently supported me. Part of that also was because I became a Live Liberian Scholar, a scholarship program in Liberia that afforded me the opportunity to cover my tuition. And that was a lifelong, actually, because, it's expensive to go to school in New York, very expensive. Living in New York is also very expensive.
It is. So this scholarship enabled you to have access to this education for free, basically?
It did for 1 year, and then the university covered me for the rest of the year.
That's amazing.
Given my engagement, my leadership, my potential, they said, we're gonna, cover the rest.
Yeah.
And now that was, for me, that is an unprecedented gesture for me, because it propelled me into being where I am today. And I'm incredibly grateful to the University of Mount St. Vincent. If you are from Mount St. Vincent and watching this, I am always a proud student of Mount St. Vincent. So it's a very incredible place that fundamentally shaped my academic growth.
That's amazing. And so from Mount St. Vincent, you decided to apply in Oxford University?
Oxford. When I got in Mount St. Vincent, very interesting, I had two schools in mind. I've always pivoted myself to where I want to go. When I got there the first year, I was like, in 4 years, my goal is Harvard or Oxford. That's it.
Harvard University or Oxford. Yeah, very, very big.
It was a very big ambitions. But I feel like setting that tone for myself was an essential pathway to inspire me to work harder. And so the fact that I just realized, okay, I must get into Harvard, must get into Oxford. I mean, obviously, you won't get into Oxford or Harvard academic. You have to get degrees and stuff. All of these things matter. But when I fundamentally built that mentality in my mind, that inspired me to work harder, and became part of the honors class, and I graduated. Graduated number one actually in public policy, and I won the Medal of Public Policy Excellence. And
So that was last year, right? The
that was
University of
actually, I
Oxford.
graduated 2022 from Mount St.
2022.
Vincent. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, from Mount St. Vincent's.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
From after I graduated this same year, I enrolled in Oxford for my
Okay.
first master
Yeah.
in master in public policy. And Oxford too, at Pembroke College, very incredible people, very supported me throughout, even when I was in an unprecedented financial situation. Because I did not come. This is the first master that I came to Oxford for fully funded scholarship. My previous master in the MPP program was partially funded, and my scholarship donor at some point in time, due to financial issues, could not fund me. So I was in the midst of an unprecedented, unforeseen situation with a financial crisis, and then I had to reach out, and Pembroke, the financial aid department, everyone were very supportive, and that became an incredible lifeline to ensure me that I graduated with my first master at Oxford.
That's amazing. So now you have one master in public policy, and
Yeah.
you're in the competition of the other one, which is titled International and Comparative Education.
Yes,
The
yes.
same master as,
Yeah.
I'm doing too. Also, I was curious to know if your parents were like a high scholar as you are. Like, were they educated at the university? Did they inspire you to get this education?
That's an interesting question. Everything I am today is like breaking barriers. When I graduated from high school, after a year, unfortunately for me, I lost my mom. And then my dad, I was a sophomore student in my undergraduate when I lost my dad too.
Okay.
So my dad was a security personnel. He graduated from just high school. He did not go to college. And then my mom did not go to high school. So I was inspired, even though there wasn't a fundamental level to look at to say, yes, my dad graduated with an undergrad, my mom graduated with undergrad. But because of their situation, I was inspired to reach every height that, did not have the chance to reach. And so I'm a first generation student. And now, if 5 years from now, when my dad was alive, if you probably tell him your son going to be, he's going to graduate from Oxford, he's going to be this person, that would be hard to believe, because I came from a very low socioeconomic status that when I got out of high school, my dad's salary could not afford me to go to State-Born University in Liberia. And State-Born University in Liberia is like, technically it's almost, you could probably, maybe it might be, now there's free tuition, so maybe it might be 200 per semester, maybe 300 or 400. Yeah, and then when at some point in time I was able to, a kind gesture, I was able to get into a college called Montpellier College. There were multiple times where I couldn't pay my tuitions, and the fact that I came from that stage and graduated from the school in New York, in 4 years my tuition probably was more than 200,000. That is an unprecedented blessing. Very privileged about it, and I'm very inspired to continue growing, because you must set a standard. That's my perception. Like you obviously and ultimately, when I grow in a family, that you probably have a level 2 to say, yes, my dad got a master degree, my dad graduated from this place. So I'm inspired by that journey. That I can reach heights that my parents did not reach, breaking generational circles and stuff.
What message would you like to share with people, for example, in Liberia, who are the Wantoe that you were when you were like between 10 and 15 years old? What would you like to share with them, if you could?
I always try to inspire a lot of them. Let me speak directly
Yeah.
to the camera.
Oh yeah, please.
As always, I love to share my story, because in my story, I came from a very humble background. The fact that I can be at this stage in life, it's evidence that anybody can be at anywhere they desire to be. It takes determination, hard work,
I'm sorry, I'm just
inspiration.
interrupting you. Up.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to make sure we can hear you well. Yeah.
It takes a lot of determination, a bit of hard work. You have to inspire yourself, and you don't have to be in a family that have that definitely have all of the resources to achieve whatever you want to achieve. I am of the fundamental belief that once you work hard, you are very determined with a bit of prayer, because God is everything. You will achieve every height that you have, and that's like the inspiration that I definitely gave to a lot of Liberians. And so when I went to Oxford, what is very important, after my first degree, we established something called scholarly path, because we realized that when I was in Oxford, you could find multiple nationals and a lot of people that were in Oxford, but we could not find multiple nationals and Liberians. So because of that, we established the scholarly path program to inspire Liberians to apply for schools in different countries around the world, in Oxford, in the U.S., in different places, and that way we use our story to share how they can be able to generate opportunities to expand their educational horizon in areas that they believe. Currently, we host the largest study abroad program every year in Liberia, where we also gather like Liberians who study in different places at Harvard, Oxford, and some of the prestigious universities around the world to share their experience. Because we believe that when we share our experience, we are inspiring a generation to believe that there is possibilities, and we are also leveraging a pathway where they can understand how to generate academic opportunity, professional opportunities, and also be where we are today. So yeah, so this is something that we do regularly back home in Liberia.
That's amazing. What is the name of the program?
Scholarly Path.
Was it your initiative?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We established it after. So when I was in undergraduate, we every year I would travel back home, host a study abroad program. But when I got in Oxford, I decided to formalize it, and that's how we established the Scholarly Path program. We are gearing up, and we are inspired that in some years to come we can establish a resource space where it's just dedicated to Liberians who want to be able to look out for global opportunities. Maybe we can expand it to Africa, because I think education is a critical resource for productive development, and statistically, Africa is one of the farthest behind in terms of having accessible and quality education. And so, bridging that gap will take a lot of opportunity. There is technological gap. There is lack of confidence. There is basic comprehension or assessing some of the difficult application models for schools that are abroad. And the best way we can be able to change that is through what we do with Scholarly Path, ensuring that we share the experience. How did you get here? Ensuring that we inspire other people to be able to find easier pathway that they can be able to apply for schools as well. And we believe that once we consistently do that every year, we'll be having incredible young people who are inspired to be able to pursue their academic dreams, their professional space, and we'll be inspiring a generation to also be motivated to invest a lot into their development. And that's the inspiration we have with Scholarly Path.
That's an amazing initiative. I'm very impressed by everything that you did, and your personal story also is very, very impressive. Now I wanted to delve a little bit more on some concepts that you've mentioned and that you've worked with. You mentioned that building resilience, especially regarding like women's rights and children's rights in Liberia, but also in Africa, and generally speaking, is key for you. So my question was, how do you foster resilience, and what does resilience mean to you?
So resilience means ensuring that, first, I'm a very passionate person, and the reason why I'm passionate is because I think we deserve a world of equal opportunities. We deserve a world of I'm a firm believer of gender parity, because I think women should have equal access to every opportunity that men have, but it must be built on a space of like, for instance, the affirmative actions, where you look at gap in where women don't have specific access, and you build some sort of a bureaucratic process or a model that be able to help women to be able to reach that gap.
What are the, sorry to cut you off, but what are the main issues currently in Liberia regarding women?
There are a lot of things. One is, in as much as we make fundamental, history by being the first country in Africa to deliver a female president.
Yeah, that is
President
true.
Ellen
I've
Johnson
noted
Sirleaf.
that. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, you've done a lot of research in
In
Liberia.
2005, she was elected as the president of Liberia and then followed by this international footballer.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
You definitely need to take a visit to Liberia.
I would
'cause
love to. I would
yeah,
love to. But so
Definitely.
yeah, she was in fact elected as the president, and like in
Yeah.
France and in the US, there were never like a female president.
Exactly. You see, we're creating a model for France
Yeah, I
and the
agree.
US and
Totally.
stuff. It is a very fascinating model. What is interesting, Materi, is that in as much as we created that model to have women, the first female president in Africa, there's still challenges with having women inclusively in political leadership in Liberia. Last year, we did not have a single female president. We have one female candidate, which is now the current foreign minister. But at a very unprecedented level, we could have done better to have more women equally participating in presidential leadership. In our Senate, the leverage of women inclusiveness in our legislature, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, is at a very depreciating level. So I think there's still a very greater stand to inspire more women for public office, to inspire more women to have access to leadership, to inspire more women to believe that they can be everything that a man can be in political process, canvassing, engaging in political leadership, working in different roles and stuff. These are fundamental beliefs that I grew up with, because I think that there must be a space where men and women can have equal access to opportunity, whether politically, whether socially, in every kind of spectrum that we believe in. And the other aspect is that we must be able to do more to protect women and children from violence, sexual and gender-based violence, domestic violence, ensuring that women can be able to thrive. To achieve this, especially for countries in Liberia, it takes a lot of resources. You have to inspire women. You have to, expand a lot of opportunities into education and professional development for women. We have to be able to ensure that we have specific rules and laws in Liberia, especially ratification of rules and laws that conflict with each other. So when we were advocating for women and children, especially children's rights, there was exceptional cases of where the rule of law conflicted with the international protocols. For an example, you have the Convention on the Right of a Child, which specifically, state in Article 1 who a child is, specifically from age day 1 to 18 and below, consider a child. In the customary law, children are allowed to marry at the age of 16. So if a child is being raped under the Convention of the Right of a Child, which is 18 years and below, and a child is being accepted under the customary law to marry at 16, that means you have a clash of the Constitution. So we still have to ratify some of our rule of law to create clear, principles on how to be able to deal with issues as such. We need to be able to have a fundamental stance on female genital mutilations, ensuring that we can be able to clearly say this is wrong and this is an act that should not be practiced in this current century. These are the current issues that we look at, into ensuring maternal health has to be another issue in Liberia that also face women and children. We have to be able to have a firm, investment into combating maternal mortality, ensuring that women have access to basic healthcare necessity, and they can be able to be provided, all of the, health needs that they have.
I wanted to ask you, what are your projects now, professionally, regarding Liberian politics? Are you planning to engage?
Of course, I'm already
Yes.
very involved in Liberian politics. I think one is I'm a very proud Liberian, very patriotic. Patriotic enough to believe that there is a future and hope in Liberia. And I'm very engaged politically. I'm part of a political party.
Which one?
The opposition political party.
Okay.
Joshua Party, the Coalition of Democratic Change. While it's true I'm part of a political party, I'm still a very patriotic Liberian who fundamentally believe that all sides of the act should work together to ensure that we have sustainable changes. Politics is not about why affiliation is also very critical politically, because in affiliation you recognize your values, you recognize your perspective and the ideas and solutions that you propagate politically. But at the end of the day, the patriotism of everyone covers out the affiliation, that there are certain fundamental time or certain specific time where the identification of patriotism or just being a Liberian becomes a powerful symbol of change. And I do believe in that at some point in time, that that we must do a lot to be able to combat a lot of things in Liberia. Today we have exceptional layers of corruption in Liberia. We have to create very firm, unbending solutions to combat corruption. We have to ensure that we have more opportunities for young people, and this is where I'm inspired by. I think, if I probably will have a solution with what we want to do, a scholarly path, is to target a specific population of young people, providing them access to opportunity, educational advancement, professional skills, building them in a sense of optimism that they can be whatever they want to be, looking at us as landscape, that if I can be at Oxford, if I can be big in this craft, I can be this place, you too can be everywhere you want to be. And that's what we're building with Scholarly Path. And that will be able to grow on to ensuring that we build a youthful population that is holistically cognizant of their society and their environment, and they are inspired to change the trajectory of that space. That would take a lot of work to be able to achieve it, but basic conversations, ensuring that they know these things, and ensuring that we can be able to share what we have had access to through Scholarly Path will continue to inspire. And today, the work we've done with Scholarly Path in Liberia, today more Liberians are looking out for educational opportunity.
Yeah.
And this is something that we set up to do when we started Scholarly Path. Every year, in every school program, admission circle, the admissions of the application of Liberians have doubled, because we build that awareness that this is not magic. You can do every single thing that we are doing right now, and that's something that we want to do. And the other aspect is to consistently advocate for governance and leadership that works in the interest of all Liberians. And that's something I've always done in my social media space, being an advocate, being vocal, standing up specifically to have a voice. One other way also about leadership is that you have to be prepared to serve. You have to be prepared, you have to be experienced, and you have to be ready to tackle the challenges. Because the issues we have in Liberia, and as common to all African countries, that the lack of prepared leadership is a very critical disadvantage to having productive and sustainable change in Africa.
I wanted to mention something that when we were in class together, just to provide some context. You mentioned it like in an interview about like the shortage in students.
Yeah.
Students not going to school, which is one of the main problem right now with
Sure.
Liberia, like the lack of accessibility to school directly.
Sure. So in terms of our education system in Liberia, it's a very interesting thing. I wish you would have taken like education in Africa with David. It's a very interesting course.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
wish I did not, but he's my
Yeah.
supervisor, so I have the chance to hear a lot from
Oh,
him.
that's cool. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. So he's both our supervisor. So in Africa, like countries like Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Rwanda have very identical geopolitical identity that is coming from extreme layers of conflict. In Rwanda, you had a genocide. In Sierra Leone, you had a civil conflict. In Liberia, you also had civil conflict. So we had over a decade of civil conflict in Liberia that predominantly destroyed every structure and sector that existed. When we were in class, what you heard me talking about was the prevalence of child soldier that has circumvented to being Zogos, just addicts in Liberia, which is a very pressing issue that required an attention. During our civil war, we have over 15,000 child soldiers that was, directly involved in the conflict. They were abused, their childhood were being molested, they were placed in a position that no child should be placed into. And they also were exposed to just abuse. So after over a decade of conflict, when peace was restored, we faced a very important challenge, which is the increasing layer of, discharged soldier being, transition to mental, having depression, psychologically unbalanced, and parading the street. Common terminology, we call them zogos in Liberia.
Okay.
So there is a statutory identity of increasing layers of zogos in Liberia. And the project that you saw me pitching in terms of in the class was creating a policy solution to directly, avert that situation, which is will come from the multi-sectoral engagement process. One that has to do with law enforcement, ensuring that we combat the prevalence of drugs in our country. The other aspect is the health aspect, which is ensuring that they have mental rehabilitation process. For us, we still have to do a lot on how do we derive quality education in our tertiary system. How do we build a model for primary education system? How do we inspire STEM education in Liberia? How do we, comprehensively derive policy for, compulsory girls education? And that is the ramification of the conflict that we have, and we still have miles to achieve that.
Also, I know that you wanted to talk a little bit about your experience with the Oxford Union in the University of Oxford. So, shall we delve into that? So, what is you're a member of the Oxford Union Society, right?
Yeah, I just got elected actually as postgrad officer.
You just officially became the member.
Yeah, no, I officially became.
The postgrad representation. I saw that. Yeah, indeed. Oh, is it part of the Oxford Union? I thought it was part of the department.
Yeah, it happens. I know not you. A lot of people get confused. What is the Oxford Union? What is the Oxford Student Union?
So, you got elected twice.
Yeah, no. So a breakdown. So the Oxford Student Union, where I got elected as a postgrad officer, as the head for postgrad students. Primarily is the constituted student leadership structure that's been built. It's the oldest student union actually in the UK. It is constituted by the university and work duly in the interest of over 26,000 students at Oxford. Oxford Union is a private membership club that exists as a society, a debating society for students. So the difference is that with Oxford Union, you have to be registered to be part of the Oxford Union. With Oxford Student Union, once you're a student or visiting fellow at Oxford, you are officially a member of the Oxford Student Union.
Okay, so this is automatic.
Yeah.
Almost. Okay.
So we primarily govern over 26,000 plus students at Oxford. As postgrad officer, I represent over 13,900 students who are postgrad at Oxford, and I'm very excited to see how we can be able to revitalize and create visibility, inclusivity, and ensuring that Oxford Student Union works in the best interest of all students, especially the ones who are very fascinated for change, who are desiring a leadership that represent their voices, that represent their ideals for university campus that is a home for them beyond home. Inspired me a whole lot, and I'm very grateful to all of the students at Oxford who voted for me. It's a proud moment. I've always been inspired to work in the student union, and I'm really excited to see how we can grow with this.
Yeah, no, that's
I feel you know a lot about it.
Yeah, I mean, I did some research, but I also think that it's very fascinating because in our class in CIE2 system thinking last semester, so I know people might not know about it. I guess the one that are listening to us, but we had a class about like system thinking that basically introduced us to like very inclusive and inductive methodologies when we talk about implementing solutions for education, especially in the global south and the global north, and how those dynamics are important. And I would have liked to delve with you a little bit more if we could touch on like in which way does decolonization practices applies in Liberia, because I know it was
it did. If you also read a lot about Liberia, you know that Liberia is a colonial inherent country. So part of where Liberia came from is we came from, our establishment, we have two groups in Liberia. We have the American Liberians, which are direct representative from the slave trade in the U.S.
Yeah.
And then we have the indigenous Liberians who were in Liberia before the repatriation of slaves from the U.S. So um, in 1816, the American Colonization Society was established in Washington, D.C. By Boozer Washington, Elijah Coward, and some of these folks. And their goal and objective was to repatriate free slaves from the U.S. And they fundamentally believed that, the coexistence was impossible. They felt that since there was a movement called the abolitionist movement, which was successful in growing a lot of support. So the abolitionist movement was the movement that worked towards ending slave trade. They think slave trade should be abolished for a lot of fundamental reasons. It was against God's will. It was inherently uncivilized, barbaric, and stuff. But at the end of it is they decided that they were going to repatriate free slaves because they think coexistence was wrong. When I was in undergrad, one note that I read on that is the Thomas Jefferson note called the Note on Virginia, a very interesting piece where he described a very hideous way that black and white cannot coexist. He had like very extreme descriptions of blacks, and that was the age of extreme layers of acceptance of slave trade.
Okay.
And so these were fundamental perspectives that drew the analysis of the repatriations process. And so the repatriation started, and we had like free slaves came to Liberia, which were the Grain Coast, through the Elizabeth, and then after the Elizabeth, there were most slaves who came. And then Liberia became established as a colonial territory, and then transitioned to a Commonwealth. And then in 1847 declared independence. There was still a extreme division between the American Liberians and the Liberians, the native Liberians, because there was a conquest for inclusivity. It was up to 1980 when we had our first native president in Liberia, and that was through a coup. So most of the presidents were American Liberians, and at some point we had a multi-political party system, which was two-wing party or single party, where no other party existed, and there was a president that we had who served for over 20 years called William V.S. Thomas. So that's just a structure. I think colonial mentality plays a whole lot into our education system, not just that, our political system, our structure and identity, our way of life have all been reformed and refurbished after the United States. Even our flag is red, white, and blue after.
So you think there's definitely a decolonization work that is needed in like the educational curriculums?
There is. It's not only unique to Liberia, it's
Yeah,
unique to Africa as a whole.
Yeah.
In France today, there's an exceptional layers of understanding that's going on. Not for former colonial for France. There is an issue that's going on with this territory desiring to decolonize not just education but language and so forth.
Language, definitely.
So it's a very interesting debate. I think Africa as a continent must build itself on a model that truly, understand the inherent growth and identity and power, that is understanding the African storytelling that will be void of colonial perception, rather than because Africa is rich in its history. The homogenizations of colonial, infusion hinder the true potential of understanding what Africa is, understanding the multicultural space, multi-language identity, and even in terms of the basic civilization that existed even before that time. And I think that for me, that's why I find it very interesting.
Do you feel that, because we talk often about this in the Global North, like in our classes and everything, but do you feel that it's starting to happen also, for example, in Liberia, other countries in Africa, like these decolonization methodologies and practices, are they like happening concretely? You can see them?
It's gradually happening. It's gradually happening. Not in a very exciting way as countries like Burkina Faso and other places. I think what is happening in Liberia is realizing that we need to be able to build our diplomacy and our foreign engagement on a platform of equal, mutual and exclusive respect. One that, when I say respect, it means one that is equally beneficial. Because for the last decades, we existed only realizing that the U.S. is our only ally and the U.S. and nothing else. But I think there must be a space where we equally reach out to, every international space as possible, then build that level of foreign engagement. Some of those things that I propose is that we have a single language, that English should not be our first language. English should be a subsidiary language, and our first language should be one of our indigenous language.
Because right now English is like
The first language in Liberia. Everyone speaks English, but we have local languages too. We have 16 tribes. But there's one tribe there that's been in conversation for a long time to make an official language, and I think we should do that. Should promote it in our education system, and Africa as a whole. We need a single language, that's Swahili. These are pathway that we have, but I think decolonization comes from a whole lot of perspective. In my view, of someone who studied policy, I think one thing we have to also get rid of is the neo-colonial engagement into Africa. In Liberia, we do have that. We have foreign direct investment that does not represent, the current crisis we have. You have foreign investments.
Do you have concrete examples, like organizations?
One critical example is the Firestone rubber plantation. We are one of the largest rubber plantation in Africa, and we don't, communities that live around that entire space don't benefit anything from that. We've had a lot of conversation around even Liberians who there's forced labor occurring as we speak. There is unequal labor opportunity where foreigners who are investing in their mineral resources do not employ Liberians to have these skills. Their social net does not benefit the community where these resources are being located in. And Liberians who work with these places, I've seen a lot of labor abuse, and some have died because of this situation.
All of those projects are funded by like Global North
they are foreign projects.
So they're
Chinese. They are Chinese project. They are Firestone plantation is the U.S. Project, and there are many other in Europe and stuff. And I think in my perception of decolonizing, I think we need to create a renaissance of understanding how policies in Liberia are being made. One, we have to be able to revisit some of these policies and see how we best provide an alternative for Liberians to have equal opportunity and access, especially in communities where the resources are being located. We need better social net engagement for Liberians. We need to ensure that we get more from our resources.
I understand. If you had one message that you could share with like those organizations, such as the one you mentioned, who like disrupt the order and the culture of your country, what would you say to them?
I definitely would say that we definitely are seeing these issues and we are coming to make changes. They are inspired for sustainable change, faster and rapid changes. And the fact that they are inspired for faster and rapid changes, they are not joking. They are part of the political conversation on a day-to-day basis. They have no tolerance for any layer of decisions that have been built on self-affirmation, ensuring that we have a sustainable change.
I love this perspective that you have, and I think it's very, very inspiring, as much as for me as I guess for like the people listening to us. When I listen to you, Wantoe, I see a lot of strengths. How do you do to always have hope and maintain this form of hope and strong vision that you have?
Very interesting. One is, in my upbringing, as much as I've had a lot of fair share of success, I've had fair share of extreme challenges. At some point in time, like, the identity of losing both parents, if I can be able to have resilience and take solace from that and be inspired, that for me is the bigger optimism of hope. And the other aspect is that I'm a very religious person, and I believe that God always gave us opportunity to make it right. We are all built and placed in specific area for the very intended purpose. And that purpose is a predestined space to be a proactive change. And I think in my life, everything I've accomplished and everywhere that I see myself, there's a saying that said, to one who is giving much, much is expected. And the perception of receiving so much, opportunities that I'm privileged for, because I count the privilege. I'm not the most smartest man on earth. I'm not the most smartest Liberians, but I've been privileged with opportunity. It is a pathway that there is hope and optimism to transmit this kind of lesson learned from different areas into our country. And so I hold myself in a very high esteem, understanding that there are a lot of people who look up to me and who see me in high esteem, and my existence must be able to transmit that layer of hope. So I'm the biggest optimistic Liberian you ever see, that there is possibilities. There's always possibility.
That's amazing.
There is extreme challenges, but we're going to get there. It's a gradual process.
That's amazing. I can see also a lot of humility from you, which is very appreciable.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
First, Wantoe, I wanted to thank you a lot for coming, and I loved this interview that we had.
Thank you.
I think both your personality and your ambitions and your project are very inspiring for a lot of people who are listening to us or seeing us. Thank you very much for coming, and it was a pleasure for me.
Great. So you want us to end up, the last time you were trying to learn the local language?
So we're going to end this interview in a very interesting way. I'm going to, can you remind me the name of the language?
Oh, it's Mana. So I'm from,
Mana,
yeah,
okay.
Mana.
Mana, okay.
Okay.
So you tell me how we say thank you and goodbye, and I will do my best to speak actually in Mana, so I guess the language in Liberia.
Yeah, so
the local language.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so Matere comment pie.
Wantoe Teah Wantoe.
Oh, that's good.
That's good? Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
okay.
perfect.
And how do we say goodbye?
Yeah, goodbye is goodbye.
Okay, so Izuo goodbye, like thank you, bye. Basically it means okay. So
Or uno again,
uno
I'll see you later. Uno again,
uno ingen I,
Uno again,
uno ingen uno ingen Izuo.
Okay.
Okay,
That's cool.
well, thank you very much. Can you say merci in French?
Oh, merci beaucoup.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so you know better already. Okay, well, thank you so much, Wantoe.
Thank you.
And
I really
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah,
This
thank
was
you.